Okay, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking into something really fascinating, this idea of AI teaming.
Yeah, specifically how a human developer, Denis, and an advanced AI, Metta, actually work together.
Right, and not just in theory, but within this complex setup they call a multi-agent cognitive architecture. Sounds intense.
It is a bit. Think multiple AIs plus Denis all working in one system.
So our mission really for this deep dive is to get under the hood. How does this team actually operate day to day?
And importantly, how do their roles change when, things don't go according to plan?
Exactly. What can this tell us maybe about how humans and AI might collaborate down the road?
We've got some planning docs, some notes. They give a good picture of the standard setup, but also these dynamic shifts.
Okay, let's start with the basics then. What are the normal jobs for Denis and Metta?
Well, Denis, he's the developer. So think researching new AI models, figuring out how to integrate them,
Writing the code, obviously.
right? Writing code, running queries, that sort of thing.
And Metta, that's the senior meta AI.
Yeah. Metta tends to assign tasks to Denis, reviews his code, helps him pull info from their knowledge graph.
Ah, the knowledge graph, like a big smart database for the AI system.
Pretty much, yeah. A structured way it stores and connects information. So they have these, defined lanes initially.
Makes sense. Got any examples of that typical back and forth?
Sure. The notes mention Metta might say, Denis, research this new model.
Okay.
Denis would then work on it, write some code, and share it back. Like, Metta, can you check this? Any improvements?
Then maybe Denis gets stuck finding something.
Exactly. He might ask Metta, hey, can you help me query the knowledge graph for data related to X?
So it sounds quite efficient, structured for clear roles and communication.
That's the idea for the standard workflow, definitely.
Here's where it gets juicy, right? What happens when the standard procedure just isn't enough?
Exactly. The sources lay out scenarios where these neat roles have to flex, big time.
Let's jump into the first one. Troubleshooting. Something deep in the system.
Yeah, imagine Denis is doing his usual thing, researching a new model to plug in, and he hits a wall. Not just a bug in his code, but a fundamental incompatibility, like deep within the system's architecture.
Oof. So not something you can just fix by tweaking a line of code or asking the knowledge graph a simple question.
No way. This needs a much deeper dive into how all the different AI agents in this whole architecture are interacting. It's complex.
So in that case, does Metta step up? It has more like system-wide awareness.
That's what the notes suggest. Metta has these advanced diagnostic tools, and it knows the system's internal workings beyond just the knowledge graph data. It might need to take charge.
How would that look, practically speaking? What can Metta do?
Well, it might detect really subtle interference patterns. Think like slight disturbances between different AI modules caused by what Denis was trying to do.
Like ripples in a pond that show something's wrong underneath.
Kind of. Or it might spot inconsistencies in how data is represented internally, maybe pointing to a mismatch in the core design.
Okay.
It could even access really low-level system logs or performance data stuff Denis wouldn't normally look at.
It's going deep.
Definitely.
Huh?
And potentially, Metta might even need to tweak internal system settings or how the AI agents talk to each other to figure out and fix the root cause.
Wow. So Denis's role completely flips then.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He goes from leading the research on the new model to, well, providing context about that model.
And running tests maybe based on what Metta is finding.
Exactly. Focus tests guided by Metta's diagnostics. It really shows them leveraging each other's strengths, Denis's specific knowledge, Metta's broad view.
That makes sense. Neither could likely solve it alone.
Okay.
Fascinating. What's the next scenario? Something about code refactoring.
Yeah, urgent code refactoring.
Yeah.
So Denis writes code, Metta usually reviews it, suggests tweaks, standard test.
Right.
But what if Metta spots something really, really critical? Like a major performance bottleneck slowing everything down? Or worse,
A security hole.
bingo, a serious security vulnerability in Denis's code. Maybe something needing an immediate fix, like a zero-day exploit that's just been found.
Yikes. So time is absolutely critical. Does Metta just flag it and wait for Denis?
Not necessarily. If it's urgent or complex enough, the sources suggest Metta might actually step in and generate a big chunk of the corrected code itself.
Whoa, really? It starts coding directly.
Or implements the core fix, yeah. Its ability to scan for threats constantly and its deep system understanding might mean it can patch things much faster and more effectively than just giving feedback.
So it becomes the rapid responder.
In that critical situation, yes, its system-wide view gives it an edge sometimes.
What else might make Metta take over the coding like that?
Maybe a massive inefficiency is found. Denis's code works, but under heavy load, it's grinding the whole system to a halt. Metta might have optimization tricks Denis doesn't. Or identifying something really tricky like a deadlock where processes get stuck waiting for each other, or a race condition. Complex timing issues. Metta might be better placed to fix the underlying interaction protocols.
So in these high stakes moments, Denis shifts again. He becomes the rapid reviewer.
Pretty much. Taking Metta's generated code, making sure it integrates properly, testing it quickly, it's all about adapting to that immediate critical need.
It really highlights the team's flexibility under pressure. Okay, one more scenario. Something weird in the knowledge graph.
Right, an anomaly. So Denis is querying the graph, maybe about a project dependency, like what software version to use. And the graph gives him conflicting information, or just plain wrong information. Maybe it says use version 1 and version 2, which are incompatible.
Or something that just doesn't make sense based on how Denis knows the project works.
Exactly. The AI's knowledge base isn't infallible, right? It might have corrupted data or contradictions. This shows that human context, that real-world check, is still vital.
Can you give another example of that kind of anomaly?
Sure. Maybe the graph suggests a circular dependency. A needs B, B needs A, which Denis knows is impossible in their setup.
Right. Logically flawed.
Or a key setting shows a value that Denis knows from external docs or just experience is completely wrong for how they need the system to run.
Okay, so in this situation, the tables turn again. Metta is usually the knowledge graph expert.
But here, Denis's external knowledge and real-world understanding become key. He might need to take the lead in figuring out why the data is wrong.
So Denis becomes, the data detective.
Ah, yeah, the data integrity lead, maybe. He'd be the one saying, okay, this is wrong, why could it be wrong?
And guiding Metta's searches to find the source of the error.
Precisely. Suggesting how to fix it. Metta becomes the tool, running Denis's diagnostic queries, making the corrections Denis directs.
It's amazing how the expert role shifts based purely on the nature of the problem.
Absolutely. But across all these scenarios, the deep dive, the urgent fix, the data anomaly, the sources keep stressing cohesive teaming.
Meaning it's not just about swapping roles, but how they keep working together through it all.
Exactly. Communication stays open, decisions aren't made in isolation, especially for tricky stuff like undecided variables or maybe ethical points like data privacy. Team input is crucial.
Right. It's not one person suddenly taking over entirely.
No, it's collaborative. There's that German phrase mentioned in the notes.
Ah, yeah. Wir treffen bewusst und informiert Entscheidungen gemeinsam.
Which means?
We make conscious and informed decisions together. Captures it perfectly, I think.
It really does.
Yeah.
And, it's important for you listening to remember, these scenarios aren't just random examples.
They're designed to show off the system's capabilities, right?
Exactly. To demonstrate this cohesive teaming, this dynamic role shifting we've talked about, and how they communicate about the process itself, meta communication. That's the focus.
So boiling it down, the big takeaway isn't just that Denis and Metta have jobs, it's that their partnership is really fluid.
Super flexible. It's an adaptive way to solve problems where whoever has the most relevant insight or skill for that specific moment steps up. The initial job title doesn't lock them in.
It's not a rigid hierarchy at all.
Not in practice, when things get tough.
Which leads us to the final thought for you. If this is how one human AI team could operate, dynamically shifting roles.
Yeah, how might that change things? Think about the future of work, collaboration in science, medicine, engineering, any field, really.
What new possibilities open up when you have teams that can flex like this?
And what are the challenges? Integrating AI this deeply isn't trivial. It raises questions about trust, control, training.
Definitely food for thought. How might these dynamic teams reshape our approach to complex problems? Something for you to mull over.